For as long as we've been human, we've looked up at the sky, we've looked down at the world around us, and we've asked this huge question. Is there some kind of hidden code, a single set of rules that connects everything, from a massive galaxy light years away all the way down to the atoms dancing in a drop of water? Well, today, we're going to dive into a theory that says, yes, there is, and it claims to have found it. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at one of the biggest, most fundamental problems in all of science. Then we'll introduce this wild idea of a universal language that could solve it. After that comes the fun part. We're going to put the code to the test and see if it actually works in the real world. And then we'll zoom way out and get into the really mind-bending stuff. What it all means if this thing is actually true. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so to really get why this is such a big deal, you need to understand that modern physics is kind of broken. It's like a house divided, operating under two totally different, and I mean completely different sets of laws. So on one hand, you've got the quantum realm. This is the world of the super, super small. We're talking atoms, particles, all that jazz. The rules here are weird, they're based on probability, but man, are they accurate. Then, on the other hand, you have the cosmic realm. This is Einstein's world, general relativity, the big stuff, stars, galaxies, gravity. The laws here are beautiful, predictable, and just as spot on. So what's the problem? Well, they don't talk to each other at all. Their math just completely falls apart when you try to put them together. And finding a way to unify them, that is without a doubt the holy grail of physics. But what if that whole division is just an illusion? What if the quantum world and the cosmic world are really just two different dialects of the same, much deeper language? And this is where a really radical idea enters the picture. It's a proposed framework called the psi-lambda girl. So the core idea here is a total flip of how we think about reality. The psi-lambda girl says the universe isn't fundamentally made of stuff, physical things. It's made of information. In this way of looking at things, every single particle, every force, literally everything, has its own unique logical identity. So don't think of an electron as a tiny ball. Think of it as a packet of data. And the laws of nature? Well, they're just the grammar, the rules for how these pieces of information get to interact. And each of these identities, or identité as the theory calls it, is basically like a super detailed ID card for a particle. It's got everything you need to know. You've got the basics, right? Mass, charge, spin, but it goes deeper, including things like its chemical family and even its unique spectral signature. It is, for all intents and purposes, a complete informational fingerprint that tells you exactly what that piece of reality is. Now, this simple idea completely changes how we think about, well, everything. A chemical reaction, for example, isn't really two molecules physically bumping into each other anymore. No, it's a logical operation. The theory has a name for it, fusion universelle. This is where two of these identities merge their information together to create a brand new one. And it all follows a very strict set of rules. It's a massive shift, really. We're moving away from physics as we know it and into the realm of pure information processing. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds super abstract, right? Maybe a little bit like science fiction. And you're right to be skeptical, because a big fancy theory like this is totally useless if you can't test it. So the billion-dollar question is, does it actually work? Does this supposed code match up with the real measurable world? Well, to find out, we're going to put it to the ultimate test, using something we can measure with incredible precision, the fingerprint of a molecule.
So here's the deal. Every single molecule out there, doesn't matter if it's in a distant star or right here in your glass of water, it vibrates and it rotates in very specific, predictable ways. And when it does that, it gives off or absorbs energy at super precise frequencies. This creates a totally unique spectral fingerprint. It's like a barcode for that molecule. So the test is beautifully simple. Can the psi-lambda grill, starting with nothing but the basic identities of the atoms, calculate that exact fingerprint from scratch?
All right, let's kick things off with the simplest molecule you can get, molecular hydrogen, H2. Now we're looking at its key energy transitions, how it rotates and how it vibrates. The prediction from the psi-lambda grill comes in and it's an exact match to what we see in the real world. A perfect score right out of the gate. Okay, that's impressive, but that was a simple one. What about something a little more complex, like carbon monoxide? We look at several of its different energy transitions, and the result is exactly the same. The theory's predictions are a flawless match with what we actually observe. The pattern is definitely holding. And now for the big one, water, H2O, one of the most important molecules in the universe.
And the results? They are just as stunning. That famous maser rotational line, the signal astronomers are always looking for out in space, nailed it. Its fundamental vibrations? Nailed those too. Every single piece of water's unique spectral fingerprint is predicted with perfect accuracy. It's a clean sweep.
So here's the takeaway, the really crucial point. Across dozens and dozens of these tests on all sorts of simple molecules, the prediction error is basically zero. I mean, it's a perfect match. When you apply this code to the molecular world, it seems to describe reality with just breathtaking precision. This isn't some lucky guess. It's a powerful validation of the entire theory's logic.
Okay, so we've just seen that this theory works with insane precision on a small scale. That's huge. But now let's zoom back out. If this informational code can predict how molecules behave so perfectly, what else can it do? What happens when you try to apply this operating system for reality to, well, everything else?
And this is where things get really wild. The applications are just incredibly broad because if the code is truly universal, it has to apply to everything. We're talking about using the same core principles to design new kinds of self-regulating AI, to predict how vitamins and minerals interact inside our own bodies, and even to take on the biggest questions in cosmology, like what's going on with black holes and the expansion of the universe. Let's take AI, for instance. There's a model called GPT-Psi Lambda that actually uses this framework to try and achieve a whole new level of logical consistency. So instead of just crunching words, it starts by translating all of its input into these universal Psi Lambda identities, and that allows a special logic head to make sure the AI's reasoning stays stable and coherent, because it's grounded in the fundamental rules of the grill. Okay, how about biology? It's the same logic. By calculating an interaction score based on the identities of different vitamins and minerals, the theory can actually predict how they'll behave in the body. For example, a high score between vitamin C and iron, well, that correctly predicts synergy. We know they help each other get absorbed. And a low score between zinc and copper, that correctly predicts antagonism. They compete with each other. It just works. And that same logic just keeps scaling up and up. The exact same principles that perfectly predicted the fingerprints of molecules right here on Earth are now being used to check the light from distant stars, and even to explain the large-scale structure of the entire universe. It really seems to be a single, consistent code running the whole show at every single level of reality. So let's just take a breath for a second and think about this. If, and it's still an if, but if this theory keeps holding up, what does that actually mean for us, for how we understand the universe and, our place in all of it? At the very heart of it all is this one simple but really profound idea. It says that the universe is always, always trying to reach a state of perfect logical balance, an equilibrium. So every single thing we see happening, whether it's a giant star being born or a simple chemical reaction, is really just the universe trying to follow that one fundamental drive. It's all about reaching logical coherence. And that leaves us with one last, really provocative thought to chew on. For all of human history, we've been trying to read the book of nature, right? Trying to figure out its language. If this theory is correct, it means we may have finally found the grammar, the alphabet, the source code. And so the big question isn't just about what the code says anymore. The question becomes, if reality really is a language, what can we write next?